on what you're looking to buy and sell. The character creator, which allows you to create a character before you begin playing any of the games in the trilogy, is also drastically updated. The original benefits the most from this, and I've gone back to see how close I can get the 2007 character models to the new models, but the options just aren't comparable. There are more hairstyles, more makeup options, more skin tone options, and you're really allowed to go all out. Looking at Mass Effect 2, we didn't see nearly as much, but there's a lot more detail in what we did see than I expected. The outfits have been reworked, meaning no more orange suits, and all of the outfits available in Mass Effect 3 are now available in Mass Effect 2. And while I don't have any fish at this point in my Mass Effect 2 save, what you should really be looking at is in the new game, as there are improved reflections on the tank itself.
So what we're doing there is instead of doing a screen space reflection, we're doing what's called a render to texture. So you're basically just re-rendering the world in a texture in that space. And so you have to be very careful where you can use them, because you can imagine a scenario where if you use it in the wrong space, you're basically paying twice for your rendering, right?
The rest of the Normandy benefits tremendously from the facelift. In Lair of the Shadow Broker, the lighting is changed as you can see in the distance, but most changes in this expansion are subtle. The 4K assets are very apparent, and they may have added a depth of field effect, which I noticed on the ship. In addition, there are a few moments where the new lighting reflects off of surfaces, like at the end of this footage when the array is retracted. Here's BioWare producer Brennan Holmes with a few thoughts.
Mostly it's just graphical improvements here, right? So like on the gameplay side, it's mostly just been bug fixes for Mass 2. We're pretty happy with kind of where Mass 2 is at, but you can see sort of improved visual effects here. Lighting's a lot better. I think I could probably talk a little bit about the DLC stuff as well in here. So it's now embedded in various stores, or you can get it through upgrades in the Normandy. Like DLC is always the fun time when it's, you got all your tools and everything, and everyone just kind of goes crazy. And I remember them pitching this concept around like, yeah, let's have a fight on the outside of the ship, and it'll be like, in the lightning storm with all this stuff going on. And that was just a really cool concept.
And last but certainly not least is Mass Effect 3, which does benefit from all the texture updates, character model updates, and anti-aliasing improvements. But because it was so polished at launch, I asked BioWare what players can expect for the third entry in the series. Here's what Mac Walters had to say about this already stellar entry.
I think it's in the sort of global improvements where you're going to feel it in ME3. The interesting thing there is we knew that Mass Effect 1 would need the most work, but we also wanted to leave everything on the table if there were things that we really wanted to improve there. And the more we sort of dug into 3, we felt like, look, we are more at risk of taking something that was pretty damn good and making it worse, or just making a lateral move where it's different, but is it actually better? And a lot of times we just said, yeah, no, it's fine. Gameplay, everything is good the way it is. There were bugs, and we couldn't fix all of them, but we fixed a lot of them, sort of thing, and we would find them all throughout all 3 games, sort of thing. So I think that's another thing. And you probably would go, oh yeah, this feels less buggy. But if you were to play them side by side, you'd be like, oh, okay, yes, I see what you did there. Putting them all together with all of the DLC, including things like, armor packs and alternate appearances and stuff like that. And when you get all of that content together, and there is less of that sort of what I would call friction in Mass Effect 1 that kind of is like, oh boy, I like it, but it's really making me work for it. It does feel like a whole experience. It together feels very obviously modernized, but it just feels more than the sum of its parts.
I was already sold on playing through the series once more, and the Legendary Edition gives me the perfect opportunity. The first Mass Effect might just be my favorite game ever made because of the promise of biotic-powered gameplay, stellar storytelling unlike anything I had seen at the time, and space exploration to unique planets. I look forward to jumping back in this May. A special thank you to BioWare for providing the commentary today and for making this amazing trilogy. It is honestly a game that will always be special to me, and I'm so happy to see the amount of care going into this remaster. I'll be doing a full performance review on the final code, so keep an eye out to see how it runs on each platform. In the meantime, if you're looking for performance reviews, keep an eye on IGN Games, as myself and my colleague Michael release new episodes each week, so be sure to subscribe for more videos like this. And a personal note from me to you, thank you for watching. I just love making this series. For more on all things gaming, we've got you covered at IGN.
The guerrilla fantasy of building a revolution from scratch has been a staple of the Far Cry games, and although Far Cry 6 looks to carry on in that tradition, there's plenty of newness here too. During my hands-off preview and interview with lead designer David Gravel, I was impressed with the fresh systems the team has baked into the latest game. For a series with Far Cry's pedigree and built-in player base, they took bigger swings than they strictly needed to, from tweaking the game's outpost system to introducing the possibility of Hitman-like stealth to a wild array of cobbled-together weapons that we'll definitely get more into. Above all else, the game aims to put more options at your disposal than ever before. In Far Cry 6, you'll team up with a band of revolutionaries calling themselves Libertad, working to overthrow the fascist regime of El Presidente Anton Castillo, and free a Caribbean island state and Cuba-like called Yara. It's through Libertad that players learn the art of resolver, a guerrilla concept of using every resource at your disposal. The developers weren't afraid to run with that idea, to the point of sometimes taking things a little over the top, and I mean that in a good way. By scrapping together various items, you'll unlock weapons like El Pequeño, a massive minigun powered by a motorcycle engine, or a gun rigged out of an old portable CD player that blasts the Macarena while you down baddies. And let's talk Supremos, customizable super weapons you deploy from a backpack. At the preview session, they mostly showed the one that fires a barrage of rockets in all directions when you're desperate, but the game will naturally feature a number of different Supremos, including some that support a stealthy playstyle. And stealth has a new meaning in Far Cry 6 as well. There's a holstering system this time around, and in-game checkpoints the player can talk, bribe, or shoot their way through. It's now a legitimate option to blend in and lay low. Until you don't. Once the S hits the F, you'll be able to make your getaway in a slew of new ways. You could take a guerrilla path, one of Libertad's hidden corridors through the dense jungle, hop into one of your customizable rides complete with jets coming out of the exhaust, or mount your horse and disappear into the hills. Speaking of horses, Far Cry 6 seems to have taken a page out of Red Dead 2's book, adding camp activities to the bases you unlock and develop, giving players more of a reason to hang out at HQ. Animal companions are also back, with at least 2 spotted in preview footage. There's Guapo, an alligator with a taste for man flesh. Good croc. And Chorizo, an adorable little doggy used to distract enemies during stealth runs. We were also promised that FND bases, what this game calls outposts, have been varied in an attempt to refresh the time-honored Ubisoft tradition of killing some dudes and changing the color of that part of the map. That said, we didn't get to see a base takeover in action, so how much these tweaks really alter remains to be seen. But it's clear that the Far Cry 6 team have taken some risks with the formula, while maintaining the core gameplay elements they've refined over the years. Yara's unique mashup of Far Cry's standard jungle environments and an aging Comunista city-state is already a bold move, and like the Yarans themselves, the dev team seem to have taken that momentum and tried their best to utilize every part of the animal. We'll see if the borderline zany combat clashes with what seems to be the fairly serious tone of the storyline, but ultimately, I'm excited to see such a well-worn franchise trying out a few new maneuvers, and I definitely left the preview session more excited for Far Cry 6. David Gravel also led the Far Cry Primal team, so he's no stranger to unique entries in the series. It looks like he's bringing the same sort of originality to this game, beefed up with the systems introduced in 5 and plenty of new ones to boot. Hopefully, it all comes together and makes for a wild, dictator-deposing ride. For more on the world of Yara, the complete written version of this preview, and everything Far Cry 6, hit up IGN.
Good boy.
I never knew so many people lived around here.
Get to the center and we'll be fine.
Need to reload.
Need ammo.
What have we here? Need that.
"12 years ago, a small development team owned by Valve known as Valve South dropped a little game called Left 4 Dead, a zombie-themed co-op first-person shooter that pit 4 players against a zombie horde and forced them to look out for the group as opposed to just looking out for the individual if they hope to survive. This helped give birth to a whole new subgenre of co-op survival first-person shooters. And while Valve continued the legacy with Left 4 Dead 2, the original developers of Left 4 Dead, now reformed as Turtle Rock Studios, had not returned to the genre that they helped pioneer. That changes with Back 4 Blood, an appropriately titled 4-player zombie-themed co-op survival shooter that goes into closed alpha testing starting today. And if my early impressions are anything to go off of, it's good to have Turtle Rock back where they belong. So much of Back 4 Blood is directly inspired by Left 4 Dead that I think it's actually important to lead off with the areas in which it tries to be different. And nowhere is that more apparent than in its deck building system. In Back 4 Blood, you actually build a deck of cards that you take in with you to each level. These cards are broken into 4 categories: Reflex, Discipline, Brawn, and Fortune. Reflex cards typically focus on granting bonuses to speed or stamina. Discipline cards are all about efficiency, so they offer buffs that give better accuracy, better healing, more ammo, and so on. Brawn cards buff your health, damage, and resistances. And finally, Fortune cards focus on cards that give you a % chance of something happening, along with other general utility-focused boons, like the ability to have unlimited ammo on your secondary weapon, or being able to shoot while sprinting. You select 15 of these cards to build your deck, and at the beginning of every level, you'll draw 3 and pick 1 card 4 times. And those 4 cards that you choose will be your starting set of active buffs and boons that you'll take with you into the first part of the level. Every time you hit a safe room and move on to the next act, you'll be able to add another active card into the mix. On the flip side of that though are the corruption cards, played by the game's AI director. Each level begins with a selection of corruption cards that inform the players of what enemies and obstacles they can expect to face. Just like how you're able to add new active cards at the beginning of every new act, there are also new corruption cards that are added that will throw a new curveball at you. Whether it be fog that makes it harder to see faraway threats, more zombie hordes, a giant ogre that you have to fight right at the start of the act, and so on. The limited nature of the alpha prevented me from really seeing the depth of the deck system, since there's only really one level and a relatively small selection of corruption cards that can change up how the level is played, but the idea seems really promising, especially the interplay between being able to see what corruption cards are coming up and then being able to plan out with your team what active cards you want to bring in into the next act as a way to prepare. It adds another layer of teamwork and coordination, since you have to ensure that you're not doubling up on cards and have all your bases covered. Another big change to the formula is the addition of a mini shop at the beginning of each new act. Instead of being gifted with new weapons and items at a safe house, instead you're given the opportunity to choose what you want to outfit yourself with before moving on. You do this with a resource called copper, which you can find out in the levels themselves in scarce amounts. This is actually a pretty big change, since you no longer find any sort of health or item pickups in safe rooms. It's up to you to purchase them all for yourself, and if you don't have the 500 copper to afford a first aid kit, you're gonna have to make the tough decision of whether you want to save that copper for the next act, or use what you have to load up on ammo, grenades, or whatever else you can afford. Everything else is pretty much as you would expect of a co-op zombie survival shooter developed by the team that essentially brought the genre into existence. You'll need to stick together with your team, since there are special zombies that can incapacitate and eventually kill you if you're not assisted by a teammate. Wretches behave almost identically to boomers and will explode in a burst of bile that can attract the horde. Hawkers spit loogies at you that can slow you down and potentially lock you in place. And snitches will creep around until they're startled, at which point they'll alert the horde if not killed fast enough. And then there are the giant zombies like the ogre, which seem nearly indestructible and force my team to turn tail and run if we wanted to live to fight another day. Likewise, the one level that we got to play was also very reminiscent of Left 4 Dead in terms of its structure and objectives. In one part, we had to hold strong against a bunch of zombies while a loud gravel filler dropped enough rocks to give us a ramp to scurry up to climb over a wall, and in another, we had to blast away a propane tank and then book it across a collapsed bridge in order to escape the pursuing zombie horde attracted by the noise. And then there's also some interesting set pieces that felt completely new. Being forced to contend with a giant ogre while also trying to find a way through a cluttered tunnel was all sorts of stressful in the best kind of way. And having to split up the team to plant 2 bombs on a cruise liner while 2 others hung back and provided cover with mounted turrets was a nice climatic way to cap off the level. It's also worth mentioning that despite going through the campaign 3 times, no 2 runs ever felt the same. Obviously, the card system does a lot of that heavy lifting by changing things up every act, but on a base level, there's a ton of randomization at play in terms of enemy and item placements. Certain rooms that were completely empty on one run would be chock full of zombies on another. Doors that were once completely safe to open might now have an alarm that triggers the horde if you carelessly open them. There's just a ton of stuff happening under the hood to ensure that these levels are as replayable as they can be. Overall, my first experience with Back 4 Blood felt like just the right balance between old and familiar and new and fresh. Turtle Rock obviously knows this genre inside and out, and the ways in which they're emphasizing player choice through deck customization and vendors at the end of every act feels like a smart shift in direction that still stays true to its roots. Thanks for watching, and for more Back 4 Blood, keep it here on IGN.
From Disney heroes like Iron Man and Mickey Mouse, to spiky-haired soldiers with buster swords and uncomfortably long-limbed creepy hat creatures, few publishers have as varied a portfolio to show off as Square Enix. Square had quite the wild 12 months, with long-awaited and long-delayed games finally seeing the light. Let's take a look back, and content warning, I hope you aren't already sick of the words Final Fantasy, because you may be after we've finished here. First though, I'm going to cheat. Let's talk about Final Fantasy VII Remake, which technically did come out over 12 months ago now, but it just doesn't feel right to talk about Square's year without it. Not only was the long-awaited RPG a critical success, but it went a long way towards ensuring Square was a profitable company in 2020. In fact, it did so well that the company's releasing it again this month as Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, complete with PS5 improvements and new story content centered around everyone's favourite materia thief, Yuffie. But what about the next full part of that remake? With no word on when to expect it, maybe a reveal is an outside bet for what we could see at this E3 showcase. There's plenty more Final Fantasy VII to tide us over until then though, with both the First Soldier and Ever Crisis recently revealed. The former, a mobile battle royale game, and the latter another, yes really, remake of Final Fantasy VII, this time reverting back to its traditional turn-based combat. Is that enough Final Fantasy for you? Well, Square certainly doesn't think so.
Isn't that what you want?
The past 12 months has seen the continued resurgence of Final Fantasy XIV Online, with more players joining the MMO than ever, an upgraded version released, plus the announcement of the Endwalker expansion coming later in 2021 that will take players to the moon. Insert, that wizard came from the moon joke here. Yes, we are almost halfway through this thing, but there's still more Final Fantasy to talk about. I did warn you. Revealed at September's PlayStation 5 event, Final Fantasy XVI looks to be bringing the series back to its more medieval fantasy roots. With little known apart from some backstory about the game's fictional setting of Valisthea, there's plenty more we'd love to find out, and this year's E3 looks like the perfect place to do that. And now for something completely different. Last summer saw the long-awaited arrival of Marvel's Avengers, which really did turn out to be a game of two halves. Crystal Dynamics' interpretations of beloved superheroes and the single-player campaign that introduced us to them was a fun, action-packed 6 to 8 hours. Sadly, its post-game, gear-chasing online component didn't really live up to billing. It's been a rocky few months since launch for Avengers, with a dwindling player base and lack of content, two major issues for any live service game. There is a potential saviour on the horizon though, in the form of Black Panther. The War for Wakanda expansion is set to drop later this year, which needs to give players enough reason to flood back in order to steady the ship. Square does at least have form here. It more than made up for a troubled start to Final Fantasy XIV's life. Let's hope the same attitude is applied here. It's not all been doom and gloom. People Can Fly's looter shooter Outriders hit the spot for many thanks to its power trip combat and addictive gear loop. People Can Fly's previously teased big expansions that will add to Outriders' story, so that's something to keep an eye out for this E3. Near Replicant version 1.2247448713 ... showed off more unique delights from the mind of Yoko Taro with this upgraded version of the Nier Automata prequel. Bravely Default 2 gave us a beautiful RPG to play on the Nintendo Switch, and rhythm action spin-off Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory hit all the nostalgic notes it needed to. And then there was Balan Wonderworld. maybe less said about that one the better. So what can we expect from Square Enix soon? We know that Life is Strange True Colors is due to come out in September, and while we've got a decent look at it recently, a reveal of this entry's spin on the series' gameplay seems like something we'll see soon. Neo: The World Ends With You, the long-awaited sequel to the 2007 action RPG The World Ends With You, is arriving as soon as July. Plus Babylon's Fall, the painterly looking epic full of trademark Platinum Games action that we've heard pretty much nothing about since this time last year. Surely it must be time to see more. Then there are the games currently scheduled for 2022. Project Athia was recently retitled as Forspoken, another game we know very little about apart from a post-apocalyptic setting and an abundance of dragons. Then there's Project Triangle Strategy, the spiritual successor to Octopath Traveler that hasn't even been given a proper title yet, but has received a full playable proof of concept demo. These are both games we'd love to know more about, but wouldn't be surprised if we don't hear anything for a while yet. So that's everything we know is going on in the world of Square Enix, but what about the reveals we can only guess at right now? It's always fun to speculate, right? So let's have a go at it. It's been a couple of years now since we've heard what Lara Croft is up to. Has the time come for Tomb Raider to make a comeback at this E3? Yoko Taro has confirmed he's begun work on a new game that he, quote, has no idea how to explain or sell. Might be a bit of a long shot to see it right now, but you never do know with him. There's also Deus Ex and Thief, franchises with passionate fan bases who would surely love to see more. The truth is, there's no way of knowing until Square shares all with the world this summer, although surely they don't have yet another Final Fantasy game to announce just yet. Surely. One thing is for certain though, very few publishers are able to match the variety that Square Enix offers on a yearly basis, and you can more or less guarantee that that will continue.
The PS5 and Xbox Series X have only been available for 6 months, but already the newest generation of consoles has been a busy one. From big exclusives to console updates and problems to much more, PlayStation and Xbox's newest consoles are off to a fascinating start. How have they stacked up so far, and has much changed since launch day? Well, IGN's Jonathan Dornbush and Ryan McCaffrey are here to answer just that, starting things off with a look at next-gen exclusives that have launched in the last few months.
So I'd say it's been pretty quiet across the board for next-gen games since both of these consoles launched last November, but at least on Sony's side, I think like with launch day, they've been doing a little better than Xbox on the exclusive games front. We've gotten Destruction All-Stars, which launched in February, and while it definitely had a bit of a light launch, they've been adding to it and improving it and definitely supporting it since that launch day. And then of course in April, we got Returnal from Housemarque, and though there have been a lot of talk about whether or not it should have some save states in it, it definitely showed that Housemarque can make a pretty impressive third-person action game that really takes advantage of what the PS5 is doing and things like the DualSense and 3D audio. It's a really nice mix of showing off what a next-gen game can be.
Sadly, still, big system-selling games remain the Achilles heel for Microsoft. We're 6 months in, and there is exactly one game that is completely exclusive to the next-gen Xbox, meaning not available on PlayStation, not available on Xbox One. That game's The Medium. And, hey, it's a good game, but it's not exactly, pumping as much next-gen iron in the gym as, say, Returnal is or Demon's Souls. But still, first-party reinforcements are coming for Microsoft, and the good news is, once they finally do arrive, it's probably never gonna stop again. I mean, they bought Bethesda after all. It's a lot of reinforcements. They are gonna kick it off. They got this year. So Microsoft Flight Simulator, which looks like it's gonna be a next-gen only release on console. And then of course, Halo Infinite in the fall. On the Bethesda side, we're still not quite sure what's gonna happen with Starfield. Is it gonna be exclusive? Is there some sort of deal there with Sony like there was with Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo? But if indeed Starfield is exclusive, that is going to be the ace of Microsoft's sleeve. You've got a new Todd Howard game that could be exclusive to Xbox. But Jonathan, one area where Microsoft obviously wins by a one-punch TKO, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out style, is game subscription services. Xbox Game Pass is so good, my friend, that it has actually stolen one of your exclusives. MLB The Show, is on Game Pass on Xbox, and it used to be, of course, a complete and total Sony exclusive. So that's awesome. Other cool stuff recently, you've got the previously Switch exclusive Octopath Traveler, Destiny 2, more. It just keeps coming. All that stuff has helped keep us entertained while we're still waiting on the big exclusives on the Microsoft side. And even better, xCloud is now rolling out to iOS devices, to Apple stuff, so that pretty soon, anybody with a smartphone, which is basically everyone, that has a Game Pass Ultimate subscription is going to be able to play their games not only on their console, but from anywhere through their phone at no extra cost for Game Pass Ultimate subscribers. That's just a totally impossible to ignore force in the entire games industry when you take all of that as a whole. Now, if only games with gold didn't suck now, but you know, I can't really complain.
It is definitely a strange time to say a PlayStation-developed game costs more on PlayStation than on Xbox if you have subscription services on both. It is a very strange place to be, and it's of course, you're completely right. You can't compare what PlayStation's offering to Game Pass. Just nothing stacks up. But at least in a vacuum, thinking of what PlayStation players have been dealing with, things have been largely the same getting into the PS5 generation, but at the very least, I'd say PlayStation Plus's games lineup each month has been a lot better. Definitely when they pared down the lineup of games on PS Plus from 6 down to 2, they didn't really find a way to up the value there or, you know, keep the value the same, and for a while, PS Plus kind of felt like a waste with those games. But thankfully, since the launch of the PS5, we've gotten almost a brand new PlayStation 5 game every month on PS Plus as part of that lineup. Stuff like Destruction All-Stars, Bugsnax, Oddworld Soulstorm, and Maquette. Obviously, again, it does not compare to the game after game that is coming to Game Pass, but at least taken for what PS Plus was, it's nice to see them adding a little bit of value. Of course, probably the closest thing to Game Pass that PlayStation actually does offer is PlayStation Now, but they really haven't brought that service into the generation of the PS5. You can play it on PS5, but they don't allow PlayStation 5 games yet to be a part of the service, and this really came to a head when they added Borderlands 3 and Marvel's Avengers to PlayStation Now, but only the PS4 versions. It's strange, especially to be in a place where there is a subscription service that does have a library of games and does span genres that PlayStation could really be bolstering, but it just doesn't match up to what Game Pass offers, and it's becoming painfully more clear as the months go on. Now, on the peripheral side, talking about things being a little bit the same as what we've gotten before, the PlayStation 5 launched with a decent amount of peripheral support, like a pretty good charging station that was kind of in the look and feel of the PS5's new, very ostentatious design. We got the Pulse 3D headset that takes a really great advantage of the built-in 3D audio of the PS5 and is really affordable, especially compared to some other high-end headphones, and, you know, a few things like that, including the media remote, the one peripheral we've all been trying to actually get our hands on. And while we only had the single option for the DualSense controller at launch, luckily PlayStation has revealed that we are getting 2 new colors to add to the DualSense lineup. Those include Cosmic Red, which is a red and black colorway, as well as a Midnight Black colorway, which is entirely black and aligned a little bit more with past PlayStation controllers at launch. So those are 2 options that we know of right now, and Sony definitely loves to introduce new colors as generations go on, so I wouldn't be surprised if this is just the start. We haven't quite been able to get any sense of what's to come other than some PlayStation VR new controllers that'll be on the horizon, but that is way down the line. At the very least, third-party headsets are compatible with the PlayStation 5, so if you're not a fan of the Pulse headset but do want to take advantage of 3D audio, there are some other options for you. Unfortunately, I think the biggest thing when it comes to PS5 and peripherals is an advantage the PlayStation is supposed to have over Xbox, but just hasn't happened yet, and that is a more accessible opportunity to get expandable storage. PlayStation has said the PS5 will be compatible with third-party drives that, as long as they match the speeds of the internal SSD, players will be able to expand that internal storage. But we don't have information about what drives those will be, from what companies, when that will be incorporated into the PlayStation 5. We're just kind of left waiting, and that's really a big problem when there are only 667 gigs of available data on the PS5 at launch. That's maybe 2 Call of Duties these days. It really doesn't stack up to being much in the long run, and so that's already a problem we're getting to 6 months in, of a lot of people having to play Tetris with their game files basically on their hard drive. So hopefully that gets resolved soon, and I do think that will be an advantage the PS5 will have over Xbox, but as of right now, it really isn't.
Yeah, for now, Microsoft's got their 1 terabyte storage card. I've got one in there. In fact, I'm already onto it because these big games of this new generation take up a lot of space. So it's good to have, even if it's expensive. Now, since launch, though, Microsoft has added the new Xbox wireless headset, which is roughly an analog to the Pulse 3D headset for Sony. I really like it a lot. It's, I think, for $100, which is what it cost, I think you get a lot for your money. It sounds good. I like the minimalist design. And what I really like is that it can be paired with your smartphone at the same time, or any Bluetooth device, and so you can actually be chatting on Discord with your friends while also playing an Xbox game and getting the audio from your Xbox at the same time, which is pretty cool. Microsoft removed the optical port from the Xbox Series X, just like Sony did with the PS5, so we kind of needed this. It was a little bit of a bummer it wasn't there at launch, but now there is this good option, so that's really good. Plus, I want to give a special shout out to Microsoft for pumping out a whole bunch of cool new colors since launch for their controllers. I've got the Pulse Red one right here. It's nice to have something besides just the default black, so I appreciate them for that. But Jonathan, controller colors aren't the only things being updated, the consoles are too. Now on the Xbox side, the Series X actually hasn't really had any major updates because it hasn't needed them. Pretty much all the functionality that was needed was right there on day one, which is great, but Microsoft still added some good stuff. Most notably, Quick Resume has been improved, and there's a new optional suspend mode that can help speed up your game downloads, which, as we talked about, these games are huge, so being able to speed those up is always appreciated. And then probably the coolest one of all is FPS Boost, the backwards compatibility team continuing to crush it at Microsoft. There are now almost 100, as we record this, almost 100 backward compatible games that are boosted up to either 60 frames per second if they were originally 30, and some games even go up to 120 frames per second, like Titanfall 2, which is one of the best games of the last 5-10 years, which rocks. We've also seen Microsoft drop the Xbox Live subscription requirement for over 50 free-to-play games, which I do admit, that's more of a course correction than a welcome new addition, but still great.
Yeah, it's always good to see advancement like that. That was definitely something that happened with PlayStation finally allowing crossplay last generation. I very much understand. Yeah, the PlayStation is in a very different place because whereas Xbox sort of unified its UI across generations and made everything very familiar for jumping into the Series X, PlayStation opted to do a brand new user interface. And while it's certainly cool to have a new nice and shiny UI to look at launch, that means some new problems come up that maybe PlayStation had fixed on the PS4 even years ago. So we're in a bit of a strange place, but we did thankfully get our first really big PS5 major software update in April, I believe it was, and with that came a few important and needed updates, such as allowing support for 120 Hz displays, and finally the ability to store PS5 games on USB expanded storage, You can't still play it off of that, but at least you can actually put PS5 games somewhere other than the internal SSD. And there were a few other added social and interface features that really helped improve things that people have been having issues with since launch. But that said, even with that update, there are still a lot of things fans are asking for. I think, especially after Returnal, we're seeing a lot of ask for some sort of quick resume analogous feature to come to PlayStation. There have been things like wanting variable refresh rate to come, the expandable storage issues I mentioned before, and of course even just small things that have popped up since launch, like people are pretty unhappy with the way trophies are presented on PlayStation 5 because it's clunkier than they were on PS4, and it didn't need to be. So there's definitely some work that's going to have to go into the PS5's UI in the months to come. And so it's been really great to see PlayStation addressing things already with an update like that one in April and some smaller performance updates, both for the system and the DualSense since the PlayStation 5 launched in November. But that said, this whole span since that launch hasn't exactly been the smoothest for the PS5. Now, thankfully, there hasn't been anything that is as ubiquitous or widespread as the Red Ring of Death from the Xbox 360 era, but pretty much since launch day, there was sort of a whack-a-mole situation going on where a new PS5 issue seemed to crop up up every few days, and so it's been hard to say what are the most proliferated issues that players have been having, how much of the player base actually saw these, but definitely one of the ones that we've seen stick around is DualSense controller drift. We've definitely seen some stick drift there that PlayStation is now facing a class action lawsuit because of, very similarly to Nintendo with the Nintendo Switch Joy-Con drift. That said, there have been a few other issues, such as rest mode bugs and occasionally downloading the PS4 version of the game when you wanted the PS5 version, but thankfully, again, nothing has been catastrophic across the board, but it's been a sort of strange, oh, what's that new issue I'm hearing about today?
On the Xbox side here, Series X owners complaining here and there of controller drift again and random disconnects. But other than that, really, the console's been pretty much working as designed. It is quiet, it is cool, it is powerful. There haven't been any major OS issues, crashes, any other real problems of note that I've seen out in the community. Basically, I would say it's been pretty smooth sailing on the Xbox side. In fact, probably the best launch Microsoft could have possibly hoped for on the hardware side, outside of the very obvious and very frustrating and sadly very ongoing supply issues.
And there you have it. The first 6 months of the newest console generation are behind us. Of course, there is plenty more ahead, and we'll be covering all the latest news, releases, and more on IGN as well as on our weekly show, Next Gen Console Watch. Be sure to tune in, follow along with us as the journey of the PS5 and Xbox Series X continues, and keep it locked to IGN.
I doubt you could even imagine it. That which commanded the stars, giving life its fullest brilliance. The Elden Ring. Oh, Elden Ring. Shattered by someone or something. Don't tell me you don't see it. Look up at the sky. It burns. The world is filled with stories of legendary heroes and treacherous villains, of fantastical creatures and wondrous places where nature and magic live in perfect harmony. Not all stories have happy endings. But yours has yet to be written.
Hello, Forza fans. The wait is finally over. All the speculation finally came to an end yesterday at the Xbox and Bethesda Game Showcase when Playground Games announced Forza Horizon 5. That's right, the Horizon Festival is headed to beautiful, diverse Mexico for the 5th title in the series. You'll get to explore an epic, ever-evolving, vibrant open-world landscape full of cacti, volcanoes, tropical storms, dust storms, and hundreds of the world's greatest cars. Forza Horizon 5 is available on November 9th, and you can play it day one on Xbox Game Pass. Your ultimate Horizon adventure awaits, so let's go. Today I'm live with Playground Games to talk about yesterday's Forza Horizon 5 announcement. Then we're going to be taking a closer look at breathtaking open world festival location Mexico. After that, we're going to talk about the artistic detail that went into recreating the country's unique landscapes. We'll also get the scoop on some of the game's new features. And before we wrap the show, we're happy to answer some questions. So pop them into chat as long as we go, and we'll see if we can get round to a few of them. And beside me today are two of the members responsible, Playground Games Creative Director Mike Brown and Creative Director of Playground Games, not that, is actually the Associate Art Director Connor Cross. Hello both, how are you?
Hey Charlie, super
Hello.
pumped to be here.
Yeah, I bet you are. Very exciting. How are you, Connor?
Yeah. Brilliant to be here.
Yeah, it's been a big old 24 hours for you both, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's been, barely slept, to be honest.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions. How do you sleep after something like that?
I think I was up at about 1:30 last night in the Forza Discord chatting with the fans.
Just making sure it all happens. Mm-hmm. What was the vibes like yesterday when the show was on? Obviously, you knew it was coming up. Did you know when it was going to be on in the show? Did you just have to sit there and wait?
It's actually super secretive.
Well, we won't go down that route then.
Very, very few people know the whole show. But you basically know your bits, and you get feedback on your bits, whereas we're doing different proposals about what we want to include in it. But you don't know what anyone else is doing. And they'll kind of say things like, oh, it works really well in the context of where it is and the games around it. You're like, okay. Is there anything we should change to make it better? And they're just like, no, don't worry about anybody else's. It's like, okay.
And then it appeared, and then that was it. The game was out in the world. So tell us more about Forza Horizon 5 then. What is it? What are we expecting here?
Yeah, it's the biggest, it's the most diverse, it's the most fun Horizon. Yeah, it's the biggest open world we've ever built. Mm-hmm. It's got an incredible new suite of social features, which just make it such a fun, engaging, and compelling social experience to hang out with your friends. And yeah, just couldn't be more excited to share it with the world yesterday.
And I can't wait to unpick it. And Connor, we're going to come to you first, actually, because one of the things that everyone on social media was talking about yesterday is about how phenomenal Forza Horizon 5 looks, with some of them even saying it's the greatest looking game of all time. And as the art director, how does that feel? Everyone's saying these lovely things about what you've been doing.
Great. It's we've got such a great team here at Playground that really know their stuff and have been and we're working on Mexico. It's Mexico, and just looking at all the ecotypes that we're working on, every single one is so beautiful that when you pull that together, makes such a, as Mike has said, diverse but absolutely breathtaking set of visuals there that I can't wait to show more of.
Yeah, and it's sort of one of those things where it's Mexico. Like, it was going to be a really easy job to make it look beautiful, right? So,
oh yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're going to unpick more of that, but let's have a look at some of the excitement you guys shared on social media yesterday, with our first tweet here being from Roby4TV, who was sort of just excited that it was true. What's that like? What's the reaction that you guys have seen of people finally getting relieved that it's happening, it's here, and it's also only in a few months as well?
Yeah, I mean, even though we play the game, the game's a load of fun. Yeah. We think it looks great, but I can't tell you what the anxiety is like going into that show and not knowing how people are going to react to it. And also not knowing, is anybody else doing an open world game in Mexico? They could be.
Yeah, fair dues. You never really know, do you?
So it is. Yeah, the anxiety levels are crazy, but as soon as it happened and my Twitter feed fills up, my phone nearly exploded.
I sent you a text and you didn't get back to me for hours. So we've got another tweet here from Slaptrain. It says, holy Forza Horizon 5, let's go. So many new things. There are indeed. We're going to talk about some of them today. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things to come, right? Forza Horizon 5 is huge, as you've already said.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Lovely. Up next, we've got Confucius Max, who says 5 is in Mexico. Yeah, I need that ASAP. So we're going to talk about this in a moment, actually. But it seems like a lot of the excitement has actually been because it's Mexico. Is that something you're really, really happy that you've seen fans have really cottoned on to? Not the fact that it's another game, but that it's Mexico.
Totally. Yeah, it's one. Because we've, throughout the development of Horizon 5, have been really, really getting deep into Mexico and really kind of falling in love with that country. Mm-hmm. And it's just so exciting.
The perk of the job, right?
Sorry?
The perk of the job.
And it's just so exciting to see other people feel that love as well. As soon as they've seen it, I think everybody certainly every reaction I saw was super pumped, thought it looked great. Yeah. And it's just really reassuring to know that other people love Mexico as much as we do.
Brilliant, lovely. And our last tweet is from Hugo, who says, I'll read the bottom one, the most beautiful graphics ever in the history of the gaming world. I'm guessing you both agree, right? You have to, right, Connor? Otherwise, that's a lot of question marks on you, really.
I'll nod.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. The trailer was absolutely stunning, and what a perfect time. Why don't we have a look at the trailer we've all been talking about? Here is the Forza Horizon 5 announcement trailer.
to talk right now. Tell me what you want right now. You could get it. Yeah. Well, you can get it. Yeah. Yeah, you can get it. Tell me what you want and I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. I'ma give it love. Come on, we got nothing left to lose. I feel it from the start. You know I'm not going anywhere. I don't give a. Tell me what you want. You can get it. Yeah. Well, you can get it. Yeah. Yeah, you can get it. You can get it.
You can get it. Play it day one with Xbox Game Pass.
So obviously the reveal was absolutely awesome. The room I was in alone was screams, jaws hitting the floor, a bit of everything. But I think this clip actually from Forza streamer Ash really kind of sums up how we all feel. Should we take a look?
It has to be! Oh my god! Yes, it is! Oh my god! November the 9th! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god!
I'm Mike Brown, creative director at Playground Games.
Hi! Thank you. That was so fun to watch. The hype is so real. Mike, we're going to go to you first. So fans have been hoping for a new Horizon game, and the fact that it's imminent is even better. The big question really is, and we picked a little bit on it before, but why Mexico? Why are we going to Mexico?
Yeah, so it's the question that we deliberate on the most. Like, what location is the Horizon Festival going to go to for each game? We start thinking about it right at the start of development of a new Horizon title, and we spend a really long time making that call.
Oh, I can imagine it's not the quickest decision you'll ever make, really.
Well, it has all these kind of trickle-down effects for the rest of the game, like the cars that you'll pick, the type of racing that you do, the type of music that you go with. So it has really far-reaching ramifications. So you need to make sure you make the absolute right decision. Right from the start, we knew that we wanted to make the biggest Horizon ever. And you don't get that far down that path before you realize there's no point making the biggest ever unless it's also the most diverse, because otherwise you're just adding more of the same. Mexico is a country which is almost like the whole world in one country. It's just got snowy mountains, epic canyons, beautiful historic cities, stunning coastlines, jungles, rolling hills, farmland, multiple different types of desert. It just has everything. And then you add on top of that the fact that it has this culture that's known and loved all around the world, the art, the music, the people. There just couldn't be a more exciting option for the Horizon Festival than Mexico.
Yeah, I can't, just the image of like cars bombing around it as well. And you saw how diverse it was from the trailer, so we're going to move over into the art stuff now. And we saw some game footage from the demo during the Xbox and Bethesda showcase yesterday, so I want to get into some of that and talk about how incredibly good it looks. So Connor, from your point of view, what improvements do we see from ray tracing in Forza Horizon 5?
So it's a Vista, and ray tracing is basically the closest or the next step to complete photorealism. It's a way in which light's calculated and reflections are calculated that is pretty much, you might as well be there looking at it. If you look there, you can see the fin as the Project One, even the letters reflected perfectly, the same resolution and everything. So yeah, it's I can't wait for everyone to go check out all their favourite cars and their setups in ray tracing. It's going to be amazing.
And having spent time talking to some of the community that takes so many pictures in Horizon, it feels like that is going to be a mode for them to really dive into. But also in the trailer, you mentioned how diverse it is. We saw a rainforest that was in there as well. And I don't know if it's the UK weather at the moment being so hot, but you can actually feel the humidity in that clip. How did you do that?
As with everything, we looked at tons and tons of reference, and we really want to be as true to that place as possible to make it feel like you're really there. And you're absolutely correct. It's super humid, and the way we did that is by introducing lots of volumetric light, which is a great big volume of basically particles that light scatters through and reacts in the way that humid and fog and all that stuff would. So it allows you to have all these glorious God rays from all the sun coming through. And
I love the word God ray. That sounds cool. That does.
All the light diffusion, to get it more technical. It's close to how that would work in real life as well.
That was one of the things I really enjoyed from the trailer. Actually, was that you would see an image that looked like it was just a picture, but then you would actually sort of like cheekily, the gameplay would then come in off the corner of it, and it was just this like clout image of, yeah, the game actually looks this good. But I'm going to test you now, actually, Connor. So of all of the beautiful greenery that we do see in the game, I want to ask you, if you've done your research, how many needles are there actually on a cactus?
On the Choya cactus, so I know the actual number.
Okay. Do you know it, Mike?
I have been told the number. I don't know if I can recall it right now.
Okay.
So I'm not going to give the actual number out because there's probably bragging rights on Twitter or something. For the one person that doesn't actually go and count.
Someone will do it after this now, yeah.
But do you want to take a stab? Do you want to take a guess?
I mean, I absolutely have no clue, but a number that feels big to me, I'm going to say a couple hundred, maybe 1,000 at a push or something. That's a lot.
I mean, I was, my immediate reaction when I was, told the exact number from our great foliage team was, no chance.
Right.
But there is 42,000, and give or take,
wow,
each of those Choya cactus.
Yeah, they are all. Each Choya cactus itself is unique, so it's not exactly 42,000.
No, it's exact.
Give or take a couple thousand, it's fine here and there.
Wow. Okay. And I mean, talking about cactus and looking at this clip here, the desert is significantly greener than at least what I thought it was going to be. Is this a feature of Mexico that you've brought into the game?
Definitely. Like I've said, we try to be as true and honest to the location as possible. We've got several different deserts for all of you desert nuts out there. So we've got your
community as well, sir.
We've got your classic sand dune desert, and then we've got the Baja type desert you've seen there that is lush. We actually call it the living desert in game.
Okay.
And what you're looking at there is actually in the wet season, which is summer, where everything's in full bloom. You get the pink flowers come out, the San Verbana, all the Encelia flowers are out as well. It's great because it's everyone's preconceived idea of a desert. It's just rolling sand and barren.
Sand dunes, and it's just dismal, and you're looking for water everywhere you go. But that's not what that looks like. Wow.
There's you can find little oasis hidden around here with palm trees, and it's there's absolute ton of it to go and explore as well. So.
Lovely. Now, obviously, I know what photogrammetry is, but for anyone listening, but for anyone listening at home who may not have heard that term yet, could you let us know what that is and how it comes into play in Forza Horizon 5?
Sure. So photogrammetry is basically the process of taking hundreds, or if not thousands, of photos of a thing you want to recreate from every single angle, and then we basically compile all of that in some software and just put it in the game. And we do that for a lot of things. So like all these rocks here.
Yeah, that bit there, that was the bit I was talking about in the trailer. Ridiculous scenes. Wow.
we do it for everything, all the way down to roads, just to try and capture it as honestly and
as authentic as it was when you found it. Yeah. It's gorgeous. I do have to ask though, I know you guys take your research very seriously, so who had to climb up the volcano to get the data on that one?
So we've got a brilliant team of photographers actually, and we even got some help from some Mexican photographers as well that took that team to some great spots and even provided what would be the best most honest representation of that area, and they do all the photogrammetry, they take all the stuff back, they distribute all the reference to the team. So they're very fit now.
Yeah, I bet they are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, lovely. I mean, we're looking at the city here as well. This sounds really silly. Is it actually that colourful? It looks incredible. I've never been there, but would you look at that?
It definitely is.
It definitely is. Lovely.
Yeah. We've sampled all of the colour from real life locations as well. But one of the other cities we've got in the game is Guanajuato, and we've done exactly the same thing there, where we've sampled every single colour. They've even got beautiful red terracotta roofs that you can see from a distance. There's a fun little tidbit.
Ooh, I love a fun fact.
Discover
that might be true.
Yes. So yeah, one of our team came back and said, hey, when we're looking at these buildings, they're actually all slightly. They are slightly different colours, but the law, apparently, it may be a rule, don't quote me on it, is that you can paint your house whatever colour you want, as long as it's not the same as your neighbour's house.
Oh, I love that.
So that's resulted in some, really brilliant pinks and zany
Such
greens.
a diverse city as well, and just looks so gorgeous to drive. It makes me think of Balamory, I won't lie, but a bit nicer than that though. Anyway, you've sold me, and I now do need to go to Mexico, but before I get my ticket, let's get talking about some of the new features that we mentioned were coming up. So what is Forza Link? That's the first one I'm going to talk about. What is it, and how does it work?
Sure, yeah, so Forza Link is a new AI assistant that tracks the current status of you and everybody else in the world, as well as your current progress, like through the campaign and like festival playlist activities. And the job of Forza Link is to try and just remove any friction and barriers between you joining up and playing with other people that you might meet online. So it'll track the things that I like to do, and it'll track the things I have and haven't done, and it might do the same for you as well. And if it knows, for example, that we both love to do the trial, but we haven't yet done it this week, then it might prompt me to go, hey Charlie, do you want to come and do the trial? And then you'd go, yeah, cool. And then it just groups us together, starts matchmaking, and then we go off to do that activity together.
Wow, okay.
In that scenario, we might not know each other, we might not have microphones, but the game's kind of try and just join the dots between people and help them play together.
Make it a bit more social.
Exactly.
Oh, I love it. And one of the other things I loved as well, actually, is we saw in the trailer pinatas, and that's in the Horizon arcade. So can you give us the lowdown on what the arcade is?
Yeah, so the arcade is a suite of really, really fun, engaging mini games that you'll all play in a collaborative or cooperative way. They're public events, so they spawn in the world, a little bit like you might have seen in Destiny. You drive up to them, there's no loading screens, no menus, you just get automatically signed up by being in the area, grouped up with some of the players, and then you all work together to try and overcome whatever the challenge may be. In this one, you've got to try and smash as many pinatas as you can, but there's a load of other different game modes in there as well. One of my favourites is called Mini Missions, which is a little bit like Simon Says, so it just throws up a little challenge on screen, which might say like, jump over another car, and then you've got to try and work together with other players there to try and get your cars lined up so that you can jump over them, and that only lasts for a few seconds, and it'll throw up another challenge.
Oh, I can't wait to play that one. There was another one I saw in the trailer as well, which was like it was like big bowling alley, and you were like booping into the sky off speakers. Is that another one of those?
So that's not part of the Horizon Arcade. This is what somebody has created within Event Lab. So in this example, obviously somebody on our team has put this together, but this is the kind of thing that players will be able to create themselves with Event Lab. So someone's gone through, placed all of the things that we can see here, including those bowling pins, and then they've set up a set of rules. So there's a bunch of rules that will be going on to make this game mode work, but some of the ones that I'll call out are, so each time you hit one of those pins, they've set up a rule that adds 5,000 points to your team's score. It didn't have to be a team-based game. They could have had it be a free-for-all or a team versus team game mode where you're all fighting against each other to try and smash as many pins as you can. It's actually based on the development tools that we use as a design team. Yeah, so it is a really, really powerful tool set, and one that I really can't wait to see what people create with.
I could see we spending a lot of time in that, especially streaming with like getting a big convoy together and hanging out and having fun. That looks like 100% my cup of tea. And it's all incredible, and there's so much to look forward to. And I'm saying this very personally, but you guys do continue to not only improve upon this amazing series with each new title, but actually come up with new ways for fans to actually play the game as well. So we know chat has been really excited about Forza Horizon 5. So are you guys ready for some questions from them? Ooh.
I guess so. You've kind of like made that sound kind of scary though.
Yeah, you're on the hot seat. Okay, so first question is from Cockney Charmer. By the way, hello, Cockney Charmer. Thank you for joining us. Can we have some convertibles, please?
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. Signed off, sorted.
Yeah, there'll be a few convertibles in the game at launch. You'll be able to just click.
Take the roof down.
Click the stick.
Oh, yeah. Stick the radio on, drive around the desert, sorted.
Left stick in.
Is it?
And I think it's left stick.
One of the sticks?
One of those.
I think you're right, I think it is.
More information to come on which stick it is.
Yeah, and then, that's all it takes.
Perfect. Now, we touched on this very, very loosely already, but Lone Hermit Crab asked, will there be a big city and not just small towns? You mentioned that there were a couple already when you spoke before, Connor.
So Mexico has got arguably one of the most beautiful cities ever, and that's Guanajuato, and it's huge. And with that, it's kind of two cities in one, and it's got a aqueduct system underneath. So you've got all this bright, colourful, beautiful architecture up top, and then it's really gnarly, tiny little, roads that all in tunnels underneath that you can drift in and around.
God, that sounds incredible.
It's weird how, as we're building Horizon games, you find that if the city existed before cars, it tends to be really, really good for driving. Whereas modern cities are all grid-based, right? Which don't make for the best driving experience. Whereas Guanajuato, every road is curving, banking, dipping underneath another road. It's just it's got this incredible organic road network, which just, if you were designing it from scratch, just out of your imagination, you probably wouldn't come up with a city that was this.
That sounds brilliant. That sounds really, really fun. Yeah. Ray has also in chat has asked, every Horizon game has incorporated parts of the car culture present in its IRL setting. What elements of Mexican car culture are you bringing to Horizon 5? Great question, by the way.
It is a great question. We're not actually in a position to talk about cars too much at the moment because we're still landing the final car list. But I will say that, it's a thing that we really take pride in. In all of our games, we really want to capture that local car culture, and that's absolutely true for Mexico as well. I think I'm going to hold off on this one actually, and say we'll closer to launch, we'll really go deep on this. But just for now, we'll. No,
I love that. Simply knowing, you mentioned before the culture of Mexico as a whole is very much a character in the game. So hearing more about that is obviously ideal. Danny88 has asked a question very close to my heart. Is there a drag race in the game?
There are several drag races in the game, yep. There is one that runs through the main festival site as well, which is especially cool.
Oh, yeah. Is that... I don't really know how to ask this, but what is the festival site? Is it still this sort of area that has a couple cool races in, or is it still just I don't even know what I'm trying to say. I'm just excited. I want to talk about Horizon Festival,
I can probably talk about the festival.
So, surprise, there's going to be more than one. But the main festival site, which is going to be Horizon Mexico, is built on a really old racetrack. So there is an awesome racetrack off to the side of it, and it's also built on a old airstrip as well in the middle of the desert. So, you've got all your typical festival stuff going on with a badass drag strip right in the middle of it, and a racetrack off to the side as well.
Gorgeous. I love it. I cannot wait to see it. On-off PS chat says, do we know if the weather changes? Anybody know? I think there's two people here who might know. Can you confirm if the weather changes?
The weather does change, and it is local as well this time. So you can be at one side of the map, and you can see a storm kicking off, and you can drive all the way over there.
You could do storm chasing?
Yeah, you can do that.
Love it.
We've even got sandstorms, so that was a tropical, so we can do a tropical storm. So you can do it. You can drive into a tropical storm, and you can go inside that thing, and there'll be loads of leaves flying off trees and everything going crazy. And then you could probably leave that and see a sandstorm on the other side of the map and go drive straight into that thing as well.
Wow!
It's one of the really interesting things about Mexico and the way it presents challenges for us with seasonality is that because it's a massive country and it has really huge elevation changes, you find that you can almost have different climates at the same time in the same season.
Imagine.
So in winter, which is the dry season, on top of the volcano, it's covered in snow. You can get blizzards.
Oh, wow.
But it's the dry season. So you go down to the beach, it's blazing hot. So you can actually be in a blizzard, drive down the side of the volcano, arrive at the coast, and it'd be blazing hot.
Sunburn. Yeah. Wow, amazing.
I definitely would be.
I fully would be burned. DJ Customs in chat, lesser question, just says, can't wait to drift tap cactus. Fair dues. One of the things I did want to know is that, again, don't comment on this if you can't, but one of the things I suffer with hugely in Horizon is hitting all the trees. So will the cactuses move out the way when I hit them, or are there some rigid ones in there?
You can smash all the cactus. Yes. You can drift tap as many as you want, and there are hundreds.
I'm afraid it would actually sideswipe if it smashes. Drift tap is only for immovable objects.
There you go.
Don't need to get technical.
Sorry, Mike.
But now you know, and now we all know. Green Machines asked, will there be any animals? And also, second question, will there be seasons? We spoke a little bit about the seasons already.
So yes, there will be animals. We saw flamingos in the
Are these
demo.
smart animals, by the way, in the way that the sheep moved out the way? Will the flamingos move?
Actually, they're smarter this time round.
So that sounds like a challenge, that does.
So we've got wild dogs. Anyone who's been to Mexico will know there's wild dogs that you can see everywhere, and now they'll be sleeping on porches or sleeping out around, and you can rudely disturb them and chase them around to your heart's content. we've got donkeys, goats, flamingos, as Mike said, that people have seen in the gameplay reveal. There's some birds, parrots, that sort of stuff.
Lovely. Chrome Finance says, again, not really a question, just we want long highways like Autobahn. Is that something that's featured in the Mexican?
Yeah. It's, as we say, it's the largest map ever, and it does have a big highway that runs kind of corner to corner. So it's probably,
wow.
I haven't measured it, but I imagine it must be the longest.
It's got to be, yeah.
It's got to be the longest highway we've ever had. Yeah.
In comparison to an English motorway that feels like it stretches for years.
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. And last but not least, Wolfgang 302 asks, what is new in customization?
Oh wow, Wolfgang, that is there's a big answer for that one.
That's a big old question.
Yeah,
right?
there's no doubt will I certainly forget some of the options here. So for car customization, there are over 100 new rims, over 100 new visual upgrade parts, thousands of performance upgrades. You can also paint your brake calipers, which is a thing that people have been clamoring for a number of years. So. And I did say once that we'll add that to Forza Horizon 4 and then proceeded to not add it at all. But this time it exists.
Yeah, there you go.
This time it's real. I've promised it after we've made it rather than before. We've also added a ton of new character customization options. So you can customize your hairstyle, hair color, you can choose prosthetic limbs, you can set your pronoun, you can choose your voice. So there's much more options when you're customizing how you appear in the game, as well as how your car appears.
I made my character day one. I don't know if you know this. I made my character day one with the same crown and like the duck boots, and I haven't changed her since. And she has like I think it's like the Pulp Fiction emote, and I just thought she was perfect as she was. I'm not touched her. So I love that you can have all of these like new elements to make the real you on day one. I just think it's
cool.
Superb.
Great to see you really engaged with that feature.
Oh yeah, no, honestly, I just found the bits I wanted day one, and I was like, you know what, that's banging. That's exactly how I want my character to look. So maybe I have to get a bit deeper on this one, but. That's everything. That's everything we have time for today. Lads, thank you so much for joining me. I'm obviously, and also on behalf of everyone watching in chat, really looking forward to hearing more about Forza Horizon 5 in the coming months. But as I said, we are at the end of the show, so it's time to say goodbye. And there's been so much exciting news in just 24 hours that I physically cannot handle it any longer. One more time for those in the back, or if you missed it right at the beginning of the stream, Forza Horizon 5 will be available on November 9th on Xbox Series X and S, Xbox One, Windows 10 PC, and Steam. And you can also play it day one on Xbox Game Pass, and Xbox Game Pass subscribers can get early access on November 5th with the premium add-ons bundle. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Stay tuned to the Forza channels for franchise updates and more Forza Horizon 5 news soon. Adios, everyone.
Everybody talk right now. Tell me what you want right now. You could get it. Yeah. Well, you can get it. Yeah. Yeah, you can get it. Tell me what you want and I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm not giving up. Come on, we got nothing left to lose. I've been here from the start. You know I'm not going anywhere. I don't give it. Tell me what you want. You can get it. Yeah. Well, you can get it. Yeah. Yeah, you can get it. You can get it.
Play it day one with Xbox Game Pass.